Hey guys, Josh from Sportitude here. Today coming at you with a shoe review, and the shoe review is on the Asics Gel Cumulus 20. This little guy here is a new shoe for 2018, landing in the middle of the year. There's quite a bit that has changed in this shoe from the previous Cumulus 19. New outsole, new midsole, fair bit going on in the upper as well. So yeah, there's a lot to get through. Some exciting features which I like. But without further ado, let's get cracking. Let's talk about the foot type that can run inside the Cumulus 20 through here. So in years gone by with Cumulus 19, 18, 17, 16, we're talking a neutral foot type, which is essentially a foot type that has a slightly higher arch, or a supinated foot type, which, here's my little foot model through here, which essentially a lot of the pressure is on the lateral side of the shoe through here, so visibly higher pitched navicular region through there. As you can see, the arch sits up a little bit higher. So that's with the Cumulus, Cumuluses in the past. What we're talking about through here with the new Cumulus 20, you can still run in this shoe if you are a neutral to supinated foot type. However, this falls into this new category called stable neutral. Now, I'm going to speak out loud, and it's probably speaking on behalf of a lot of other specialty running stores out there, that there's no specific labeled category in the market called stable neutral. We've just identified this new category as being stable neutral. So what I mean by that is, if you are a slight pronator, and I say slight because very, very mild pronator, it's important that if you're a traditional pronator foot type, you won't enjoy this shoe at all. A slight pronator can run inside the Cumulus 20 with initial comfort. It's for those runners out there that don't like the medial assistance in shoes, so whether it's dual density, whether it's a guide rail, whether it's the Mizuno wave plates, etc. For those runners that pronate and don't like that support system, it restricts them. Stable neutral has been a great category for us to introduce into that range to make the running shoe nice and comfortable. So we're talking neutral, supinated, and slightly pronated foot types can enjoy the Cumulus 20. With all my shoe reviews, I like to start from the ground and work my way up. So let's talk all things outsole. Flicking the Cumulus 20 underneath the shoe through here, you can see that we've got rubber from the heel right the way through to the forefoot. Now that is different in comparison to the Cumulus 19 as a whole, this little guy up here. As you can see with the Cumulus 19, we've got a trustic system on the lateral side and the medial side, and that played a key role in the shoe when you were going through that mid-stance phase, or what we call braking phase of your gait cycle. Now that little structure in integrity through there just gave the shoe itself a lot more strength through that loading phase. Now, as we come to the Cumulus 20, it doesn't have it. And the reason that I believe Asics have done this is because when we're talking about the versatility of the Cumulus 20, what's it targeting? It's almost like the GT2000 for obviously a neutral foot type. We want someone to go for some longer, slower runs, get the crash pad cushioning, which you're going to get through the back through here. However, if you want to speed things up and run a little bit quicker, get up onto that midfoot, forefoot, you can see through here, we're going to have a point of contact with the ground when that foot comes down. So therefore, it gives you more surface area when your foot hits the deck. I like that feature change. They're by no means the first brand that have done it. A few other brands have adopted this full contact zone for a couple of years now. I'm just throwing some shoes out there. The Glycerin from Brooks have done it since roughly about the Glycerin 12 or 13. The Ghost from Brooks as well. So yeah, there's a few brands out there that have adjusted this full contact zone. So Asics are a little bit slow on the uptake. However, it doesn't matter. I do like what they've done with the Cumulus 20 in relation to the outsole. Now that's talking about the rubber. Let's talk about the flex grooves through here. So like all good mileage shoes from Asics, they have their guidance line, that vertical slit that comes up through the shoe through here. So as you can see when my finger is following that little line, what that does is it gives the shoe a balanced line through that gait cycle. When the foot hits the ground, goes through to mid-stance and toe off. Just the guidance line is exactly that, what its namesake is. It actually guides a foot through the gait cycle. And then we talk about the flex grooves. We've got essentially the horizontal platform. We've got the 1, 2, and 3 through here. Now, as you can see, from 1, that's a whole slit medial to lateral side, whole way through the horizontal platform. As you're coming through to the second horizontal flex groove, we've got an encapsulated piece of rubber through here, so it's stopping the flex groove going the whole way through. And therefore, when we talk about the last flex groove, it's the same sort of setup. We've got half a little lateral side through here, and obviously giving the shoe, as the guidance line finishes around the top there, to make it a really flexible shoe on that last phase of gait cycle, after that toe off point. So the flex grooves do play a really critical role through the forefoot. Looking at the crash pad zone through here, you've got a relatively sort of large surface area through that heel strike zone through here. Now, centrally plotting a pod right there is not going to do much for a runner. And I say that because when runners heel strike, we don't strike on the central part of our heel. We strike on the lateral part of our heel. So therefore, this little guy over here, as you can see, it's almost a little bit dynamic. So when you start putting a body weight force through that, it will possibly give a little bit, which is okay because it's going to cradle depending on the amount of force going through that part of the foot. So, that little guy there, in relation to the wearing side of things, is going to wear a little bit harder than the rest of the rubber as well, because that's essentially designed to take a little bit more load on heel strike. Now, as we come through to comparing part of me to the 19, I'd just like to show you again what's going on. So I talked about the truss stick system before. However, if you look at the heel strike zone through here, in the 19, they had a slightly larger or thicker outsole configuration to the 20. And as you come through to the forefoot as well, there is more flex grooves through the forefoot, or more horizontal flex grooves. So we've got 1, 2, 3. However, the second flex groove, as you can see through here where my finger is, you can see how it goes from the medial to the lateral side the whole way through. So therefore, it is a slightly more flexible outsole setup. Now, I'm going to then touch on the midsole because this all ties in together. So the midsole has changed. The 19, we had gel heel, gel forefoot, nothing different from the 20. However, we're talking about a midsole foam that was fluid ride. Now, for those of you that are Asics runners out there and understand the cushioning systems where they've come over the last 5 to 6 years, fluid ride has been a pretty responsive cushioning system. So therefore, what Asics would have done with the outsole, to go back one step, is to try and make it a little bit more flexible through the toe-off phase by having an extra horizontal slit through that second flex through the forefoot. If they didn't have that and had the same setup as the Cumulus 20, this shoe would have been pretty stiff on toe-off. So that was an adjustment they made to compensate for how responsive the actual midsole is in the Cumulus 19. So then we pick up the Cumulus 20. What do we have? We've got flight foam. Flight foam. Now that cushioning system, or that midsole system, is now starting to roll out in all Asics premium shoes. Now, follow my finger. We've got the flight foam white EVA setup, and then as we come up this top layer, this blue setup through here is flight foam propel. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Flight foam propel. So that is the responsive layer which sits just on top of the cushioning layer. So therefore, they're still targeting that shoe to be a mixture of both cushioning and response. It's going to cater for someone who's a neutral foot type going for a longer run, or it's also going to cater for someone who wants to really pick things up and run a little bit faster, get a bit more force through that foot and get a bit more response. That's where the flight foam propel plays a key role in this shoe. As you can see through here, like all Asics shoes, you get the visible gel set up through the back through here. Obviously the gel pod to help assist on that cradling cushioning system as the foot comes down on heel strike. And also they do have a twist gel through the forefoot as well. They just don't visually expose it on the lateral side of the shoe through here. So don't be alarmed at home, there is gel through the forefoot. They just don't need to show it off with the lateral gel pod like they've done in the Cumulus 19 and Cumuluses in the past. So you've got a lighter midsole comparison Cumulus 20 to 19. So a lighter midsole, that reduces the weight. Let's talk about the upper of the new Cumulus 20. So there's not a lot here to talk about from the comparison to the 19. Of course, there's a few different setups in relation to seam lines, etc. However, what Asics have done, they've just done the jacquard mesh configuration. Essentially, that's just a fancy way of saying we've got a strong, breathable upper. Every brand has a strong breathable upper. However, Asics have flagged it as a jacquard mesh. So as you come through to that forefoot, you've got a really nice stable hold through the whole sort of mid-stance toe-off range through there. So it feels good on the foot, it feels nice and snug. You put your foot in, you've got a little bit of wriggle room through the toe box, which I like. But however, where you need that support through that mid-stance phase, you've got a nice strong hold. What I do like to sort of consider when I'm talking about mesh uppers is what is the shoe going to be used for? Now, obviously it's a running shoe, but however, what sort of versatility do we need to have in an upper when we're talking about the client that's going to run in this shoe? So when we're talking about a heel striker, bang, what do we need in an upper? We need a nice stable heel counter. So we've got an internal heel counter here from the Cumulus 20, which is nice and deep. Actually, if I have to be honest, I thought the 19 was deep. However, I haven't pulled out a ruler and measured them, my heel sits a little bit more inside the shoe in the Cumulus 20, so that is an absolute plus from me. It's a plus because if you need an orthotic to go into this neutral shoe, you've got a little bit more depth to play with, which is really, really handy. So the internal heel counter is nice and deep, it's nice and structured, so when that foot comes down on heel strike, bang, that heel counter does a great job. Now, when we're coming through to potentially looking at a mid-foot striker, so someone's coming down in this region through here, generally speaking, the foot's going to be hitting the ground with a little bit more force through that region. So what do we need? We need a really nice, stable navicular region. Now, to the naked eye, I couldn't actually see or can't see any what we call straps or configurations from the midsole to the upper. However, there's a weld mesh setup which sort of comes in line with the Asics logo as well, and as I flip it around to the medial side as well, you can see here on top of the jacquard mesh there's a lot going on in relation to slapping on that logo, which naturally gives the foot a little bit more support as well. So there's a cosmetic and a structured feature to that welded setup on top of the shoe. So it does give a really, really good hold when that foot comes down through that mid-stance strike zone. And also plays a key role when we're talking about heel strike to mid-start, slowing down that rate of movement through that braking phase of the gait cycle. Then as we come through to the toe phase, we've got a nice spacious forefoot. So the good thing about the Cumulus is we're talking two widths. We've got your Ds and we've got your two Es for men's, and we've got Bs and Ds in the ladies category as well. So two widths there, which is really, really handy. So I've been for a run in the D width, not this little guy here, but my D width Cumulus 20s. And initially, I like to talk about toe room because I've done it in videos past. I've initially liked the shoe to be quite snug through my toe box and to feel that my foot is really secure in the shoe. However, I don't know what it is, or a change is a good thing. I almost woke up one morning and said, you know what, I don't want my foot to be so tight in the shoe. I want a little bit more toe space, a little more wriggle room. And I must admit, I really enjoy the extra wriggle room I get in the Cumulus 20. A little bit deeper toe box, slightly wider setup through that forefoot as well. So having a little bit more room for my foot to splay out as I go through that toe off phase. So that's all things up at Cumulus 20. Just quick little comparison to the Cumulus 19 through here. So realistically, as I said before, there's not much that's changed in the heel counter. The Cumulus 19 is ever so slightly a little bit shallower, just a little bit. So my foot sat a bit deeper in the Cumulus 20. As you come through to the braking phase of the mid-start cycle through here, they've got very similar setup in relation to what they were trying to achieve with that welded configuration, the logo on the lateral side. However, flip it around, you don't have a logo on the medial side through here. So realistically, as you follow my finger, see that line through there? That's the only welded setup that's going to hold that foot in that position through there through mid-starts phase. However, when you pick up the 20, you've got a little bit more going on with the logo and a few more straps, etc. So the medial hold in the upper in the Cumulus 20 is a little bit better than the 19. So it's an absolute tick through there. And as you come through to the forefoot, I've touched on the fact that this is a little bit boxier. It's hard to tell to the naked eye. However, I just found with the 19s, it just came to a little bit too much of a point. I didn't mind the comfort of them. Sort of contradicting when I say when I used to like a slightly tighter, firmer toe box. However, I never ran miles in the 19s. I just tried them on, had a few jogs on the treadmill. I never put some Ks into the 19s myself, so I couldn't tell you how that forefoot performed. However, so far, after about 150 Ks in this little guy, I'm really enjoying that amount of space through the forefoot. Okay, there you have it, guys. The new Asics Gel Cumulus 20. Cracking new shoe. Hope you've enjoyed this shoe review. There's obviously a bit to go through with the outsole, the midsole, and the upper. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. Any comments on the video or any assistance in selecting the right running shoe for you, please drop them in this link below. Until next time, happy running, and we'll see you soon.